Hello everyone, today I'm here to unbox Catan 3D expansion Seafarers and Cities and Knights. This 2 expansion behemoth box is the same size as Catan 3D edition, which you do need to play both of the expansions. But this is amazingly cool box provided to me by Catan Studios to unbox for you. So let's get this box open, look at all the pieces in all their glory. And if you want to know my thoughts, I'll be doing a separate video reviewing this, the expansions and all that sort of jazz. So stay tuned for that. But for now, let's crack open the box. So much like the original game, the sort of sleeve as of such comes off completely and you are left with a sort of double thickness box, and that is because if you lift this part out, this is then actually the sort of box lid. Nice strong box lid, but you can have it with that sleeve to have some of this visible if you so wish. If you're going to be storing this long term and wanting it to survive, the thick lid will do the job and still looks pretty good through that sleeve as well. Now in the bottom here you're going to have some rule books. They are sort of double-sided back to front. So you've got your Seafarers and then your City and Knights. That's a pretty cool touch that it's sort of all there available for you. And it's similar to the style of the normal Catan where you've got your rule book and then you've got your sort of appendix which comes with the more rules. Then you've got a bit of a sheet that you're going to be popping pieces out of, and then they have slots in the main box, so you don't need to worry about sort of those things going missing at all. Coming into the main box, we're going to take off this lid, and this area is sort of split into a few key sections. And these sections do come out separately if you kind of need that. You don't need to sort of really take them out of the box, but they are slightly separate if for whatever reason you wanted to. So starting off down this side and moving across, we have new tiles. Now these tiles are very much like those from the sort of base edition of Catan 3D, if you ever want to call it a base. It's got 2 more mountains, 2 more clay hills, it's got 2 of these new, for one of the expansions, the new gold tiles. So that's sort of the slightly new one, so just giving you a little bit of a longer look on that. Then you've got 1 new wheat field, 1 new sheep wool field. You've got 2 deserts, and that's going to be used for some of the seafarer maps where you need to cross the desert. And then 1 wood forest tile. They're all, like I say, they are very much like those from the original box, but just so you've had a good look at them. Then moving along to this next top section is the sea tiles. Now you're going to get 19 of these sea tiles, surprisingly for the Seafarers expansion. These all look very much visually the same. They are nice and solid, just like the basic sort of terrain tiles, and on the back, the reverse, it does have the Catan logo, much like all the other tiles, so you know it's obvious that it's from the Catan 3D set. They are, like I say, they're all very similar, and they slide just nicely sort of back into the box there. We have 1 extra of the 3-to-1 trade good little boats. It looks, again, very similar, identical to the one from the ones from the base box, so you're not going to be confused there. Then we have the first in this section of our new pieces. In this case, it's the Robber of the Seas, the Pirate. Now, the Pirate is a cool piece on not so much a pirate ship, but a pirate raft. He's got a little bit of sort of his discovered booty, and he's got a nice little sword, so you're not going to be mucking around with him too much. You've got some more card trays. These are going to be particularly helpful for when you're playing with the new commodities and the new sort of cards from the Cities and Knights expansion. Let's dive further below that, because that's where you have an area of storage. So that's where you're going to get your sort of the Catan tokens, the gold coins some people would refer to these as, and they will nicely sit in this section here with a load of other components. Next up in here you have the boats for the 4 players. So you have the white or greyish style colour, you've got the blue boat, the orange and the red, and these match the 4 colours that come in Catan 3D, which is very helpful. You may have noticed earlier on when I showed one of the punch board, some parts are already missing. That's because I wanted to make sure that they are nicely fitting into the box, so I can say that they fit in this little sort of cubby hole area down here. They are smaller than the sort of building costs ones from Catan 3D. They are also double-sided, so slightly smaller with more information on, but they are still nicely readable. They are sort of flipped over from one side to the other, so you can play with the Cities and Knights plus Seafarers, or just the Seafarers side. So it's always going to allow you to know all your building costs at a glance when you're sat around the table. There are a couple more pieces that fit into this section, though there are 2 sort of sections like this, so you know you could move them around a little bit. In this case, the metropolises, the 3 pieces that are going to add to your cities in Cities and Knights, and then the little helmets. These are going to allow you to show whether your knights around your sort of cities and roads and that sort of parts, if they're active or not. And you can see a knight with and without right there. You have some more of the number tokens. They're going to be very helpful for actually your new terrain areas having numbers, and most of the sort of setups, they're going to show you how to put the numbers out, or if you're making your own, you can follow the rules to make sure that there's a fair distribution of these. Much like in the base game, they are of that sort of slightly translucent, off yellowy sort of colour, with very clear numbering with the dots on them. They don't have a dedicated slot in the box, unlike in the original, and there also was not a plastic baggie included. They sit, for me at the moment, just nicely in the bottom there. You could easily just put them in a little bag for yourself though. The final thing I have stored in that area is the new longest road, or the longest trade route. You're going to be using this tile as a replacement for the one in the original 3D edition box, because now in Seafarers you can have the longest trade route, which is boats and roads rather than just roads. So you just use this. It's kind of exactly the same otherwise, but it's nice that they did include this in the box. The final element of the middle section are a range of tiles. Now there's these 2 small, tiny small ones which fit nicely here. Then we go into some 2 areas, and again you're going to be using these all slightly differently depending on the different maps that you're using during Seafarers, because there's a range of scenarios for you to set up, including how to set up your own completely unique ones. Then there are these pieces which have sort of a hexagon breaking out from the side that allows you to build sort of some slightly different shaped areas. Really helpful for like the 3-player games where these are used. They might be used in the 4-player ones as well, I can't quite remember. But these all sort of build together nicely and store very simply away, nice and snugly. Back to back on each other, so you know you've not got that nice top of the tile rubbing against each other. And that is sort of all of the main sea tiles and everything from the first 2/3 of the box. We now move over to the final area, and there's quite a lot squished into this part of the box. Yes, you've got like the dice that you're going to be rolling for the barbarians when you're playing Cities and Knights. You have the merchant, the nice little merchant piece. Now that can be sort of popping up when you're playing Cities and Knights to sort of give you additional trade options and points if you hold on to the merchant. Next to that in the box, you have the Barbarian ship, not to be confused with a nice sort of friendly ship. This is the Barbarian force that's going to be moving along the Barbarian track. This fits nicely into one of the edges of the board and allows you to track the sort of Barbarian movement along it. I think this is a really cool way of blending a nice track into the board and having a little bit of something, just a little bit of extra texture on the game board. So that's those two pieces there, with the track being used for cities and knights. Underneath here we have, in the same four colours again, we have the city walls, we have the different types of knights, because you have in Cities and Knights sort of three versions of knights, and then you add those helmets that we saw earlier onto them when they are active, and that's what they are used for, and that's what you've got in the three different player colours. Below that in the box we have the city improvements. Now these are done a little bit differently than before, because when you open them up they don't have all of the recipes because you've got those recipe cards, but they're nicely bound where you can flick through and see the upgrades. The final thing in the box are two decks of cards that you're going to utilise. They come, instead of cellophane wrapped, they come with these lovely sort of paper ones. A lot of games are doing this now, slightly less sort of unreusable plastic, single-use plastic even in the game. And these are the sort of the new deck of development cards that you're going to be using. That are just sort of stored in the bottom in there's sort of some nice little card slot grooves. So that is everything you will find in this gigantic box. The Catan 3D expansions, Seafarers and City and Knights. It's a brilliantly big box full of very nice components. Let me know what you think of what it looks like in the comment section below, and if you want to see my thoughts really diving in after playing a load of games with this very nice expansion, very expensive expansion, well, check out my review which will be coming shortly on the channel.